And welcome back. Another series of Good Vibes. I'm Martin Falls. Joining me now, Debbie Cox DeNova. She's our transformation coach. She's going to get us to another great topic today, exercising self-love. A lot of people get down on themselves and really sort of hate themselves. And if you can't love yourself, you can't love others.
That is such the truth. Yeah, and we're in the season of love right now, and a lot of people are trying to attract love, and it's important to know that you can't meet anyone else deeper than you've met yourself. So if you are somebody who literally is in that self-love experience, you exude love. It's important to remember that people are reflectors. When you have a lot of self-love, and I mean true self-love, not arrogance, that's actually the opposite, like overcompensating for self-hatred. When you have true self-love, what happens is you emanate this light of love, and people automatically want to love you. That's just kind of how we're built as human beings. So when you work on self-love, it's also about attracting the love that you want in your life. It's about meeting yourself, your own needs in a way that allows you to create and cultivate healthier relationships on the outside. Now, this is not always easy, because if someone is hating themselves and I say, you should just love yourself, Martin, right? That sounds like a different language. It's like, how do you love yourself? If I've always only ever known self-hatred, how do I love myself? So we're going to talk about that today, but it's important to distinguish what self-love is versus conditional self-acceptance. Because a lot of people will say, well, I love myself. But when we unpack it, what we're actually looking at is, I love myself when I'm winning. I love myself when I'm thin, when I've, gotten this thing in life and people are actually loving me, or I'm in a relationship, I'm worthy of love and I give myself love. But if things are not working out, especially when I gained 20 pounds or when I lost my job or when this relationship ended, what are the narratives that then start to run? Because then when you look at it, what you see is that you're actually practicing conditional self-acceptance and not self-love, and you cannot do both. Either you have self-love running or you don't. And if you don't, in all likelihood, what you have is conditional self-acceptance. Now, this is really important, because as a transformation life coach, when someone comes to me, I'm in the work of helping them to transform their self-concept, because we're not going to go into a different reality without you having a different relationship to yourself. And so what people will do is that they will actually, if I don't watch this, right, they'll actually step into a new self-concept. I'm going to dress differently. I'm going to walk differently. But underneath, what they are saying to themselves is, unless I dress and walk in this way, I am not worthy of love. And if anyone could see that I was actually this person and not this version of myself, they actually wouldn't love me very much.
So they're overcompensating.
Yeah, they're actually reinforcing shame, ironically. They're using this new persona to reinforce their experience of shame and self-beat up and self-condemnation. And that is not real self-love, okay? And people can sense it, right? Like when you really don't have a good relationship with yourself, people can sense it. So it's really important to recognize that this all goes back to attachment styles, right? And so we talked about John Bowlby's research on infants and their relationship to their parents. If you had a relationship with your parent where you felt like you could go to them for love and acceptance anytime, and also you could go and be independent and they would watch over you and there would be someone to come back to, kind of that secure self, that base. In all likelihood, you grow up to be somebody who has a secure relationship with yourself and therefore a secure relationship to others. However, if you didn't have that, it becomes much more challenging for you. And so what we have found is that with someone who has an insecure attachment style, when they get older, they actually are much more prone to mistreating themselves on the inside. So it's about reparenting yourself. It's about imagining that these insecure parts of yourself are the parts that hate yourself or whatever it is. Those are like kids, little children on the inside. And as cheesy and cringe as this work is, what I do is I take people through the inner child work to actually see the part of themselves that is like, pinching the fat and looking at their bank account and feeling down on themselves, to actually see those as children. You would never, for your own child, think, I'm going to have a child and then I'm going to tell that child, listen, in order to earn my love, you better show up this way and that, right? you would understand that the child needs unconditional love all the time, especially when that child is not doing well.
Yeah, not conditional.
Right. And especially for the developmental stuff. We're all developing. We kind of forget that. As adults, we're still developing, especially if we have goals and we're moving towards something. So as a child, if a child's learning how to walk and they fall, we don't beat them up and say like, oh, you're not doing well and so you don't deserve love.
Or if a child makes a B, instead of hugging them saying, I know you tried your best.
Yeah.
How could you make a B?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So we don't do that ideally. We don't do that with children. And we need to remember that we also shouldn't be doing that to ourselves. We are in the developmental phases, all kinds of developmental phases. We're going to fall down. We're going to get it wrong. We're going to miss the mark. And we are still worthy of self-love. In fact, when we're doing poorly, we actually even need more love from ourselves. And
so it's patterns.
yes. And the thing about it is that it generates good feelings, right? So if I love myself genuinely, and a good question to ask yourself if you don't know is like, what would self-love do? And be prepared, because when you say that, all sorts of stuff will come up. You're going to want to go with your intuitive guidance there, right? Until it becomes natural. And then daily, you can say to yourself, I love you, and as cringe as that is in the mirror, and wait for all the emotions, that resistance, that cringe to come up and process it. And processing it looks like feeling into it and allowing it to actually surface and continuing to love yourself anyway, reparenting yourself until you have a different relationship with yourself where it's like, okay, I know you didn't do what you wanted to do here, but I still love you. You're still worthy of love.
So you got to defract the computer.
Yeah.
And the computer is you.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Creating a secure relationship with
All
yourself.
right, hold that thought. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with part 2 of Exercising Self-Love. Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Alford and Associates, for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights. All right, we're back. Exercising Self-Love here on Good Vibes. Our transformational coach, Debbie Cox DeNova, is here. Part 2. We've all seen the person that walks in the bar, walks in the restaurant. And they got that little walk going on. And they got it going on, but about 15 minutes into the conversation, when they're self-destructing themselves, you go, you're pulling for them, but they self-destruct themselves.
Yes. Yes.
The facade can only last so long.
Exactly. And it's really heavy. It's really difficult. And a lot of people don't know another way, right? And so it's really important to sort of evaluate and sit with yourself and actually understand that the relationship you have to yourself, the things that you say to yourself, you're almost saying those things to a small self, a small child self, who is very emotionally vulnerable and impressionable, right? And so what happens is, unfortunately, a lot of people have unconscious parents who start off by beating them down emotionally, or subconsciously they're just kind of sending a message that you're not good enough, right? You need to work a little bit harder. And so what happens is we grow up and we just take over. Internally, we start running those thoughts, and knowing that these thoughts run, most of our thoughts are just habitual thoughts from yesterday, right? Over 90% are just like the regenerated thoughts. So if they're all the way from childhood, and the lesson is, hey, listen, unless you do this, you're not worthy. Unless you do this, you're not worthy of love. So a lot of people will have it twisted. When I come to work with on self-love, what we find is a lot of people have it like, well, if I don't treat myself this way, if I don't bully myself in a way, I won't be motivated to do anything different, right? They believe that in order to get to a true sense of self-love, they have to withhold good experiences from themselves first and earn their way there. And so it's always this process of earning and then trying to keep, earning and then trying to keep, right?
Is that why people, what they call it, cutting or whatever, people hurt themselves, they injure themselves?
Yeah, that's a whole other kind of
Yeah.
like psychological thing where it's like, trying to harm yourself. But yeah, it can get to that place, yes, where the self-hatred is so much or the numbness is so much they're trying to feel the pain, right? And it's all about that relationship to yourself. And so it's really important to remember that when we take it back to the child self, it's that, ironically, that's going to produce negative emotions inside. And it's been shown that when you have good flowing emotions, it actually strengthens the integrity of your heart. And it actually makes it so that you are more effective at getting things done in your life. So anyone running by the belief that they have to withhold these experiences of self-love until they've reached a benchmark, you should know that by giving yourself love now, no matter what, and like really just making that the goal, like I'm going to give myself unconditional self-love, I'm going to work my way there if I don't know how to do it yet, is going to actually empower you to get from where you are to where you want to be so much faster. And it's going to be more enjoyable too as well.
I've had I don't know if the pleasure or the misfortune sometimes in my business, I've interviewed some very high-powered people. But if you spend enough time with those high-powered people, they're human too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And you'll find that the ones who are doing the very, very best are the ones who had that good relationship with themselves. And again, it's very, very evident. So we can, and when we bring it back to kids, we can see we would never abandon our kids when they're pain, right? If your child is experiencing something really hard in life, you're not like, hey, listen, I need you to like go live with your uncle, for a couple days till you're over this, right?
I'm done.
Right.
Yeah.
But we treat ourselves that way, right? It's like, I'm going through something and I'm turning my back on myself and I'm being there for other people, but I'm not being there for myself. And that is really costly. And it actually compromises your ability to be effective in life. So it's about recognizing, just as you would with a child that you love unconditionally, it's not always like bubble baths and chocolates and like, you know what, you don't have to do anything today. You actually look at the entire ecosystem of that child's life and you go, what's going on here? Does this child need more sleep? Healthier foods? Like, we're not doing well here. So sometimes it is taking them out for treats, of course. It's a big part of self-love that I don't even have to tell people is like, take yourself on dates and do things nice for yourself, for sure. Whatever your love language is, give yourself that, right? But a big part of it too is going, okay, how am I caring for myself? Am I taking care of the physical body? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I surrounding myself by the right kinds of people? Sometimes it's the hard things, right? Just like when you have a child, you have to do the hard things in order for them to actually benefit. And so looking at that whole ecosystem and going, okay, and if you don't know, just asking, what would self-love do? And going with that intuitive guidance of which direction to go, and then having the courage to follow it. Because a lot of times it's hard.
But if you don't do it, years later, you'll reap what you put on your children. But if you take that extra sacrifice, it turns out pretty good.
Absolutely. And it is the same thing with yourself. No matter how old you are and no matter how negative the narratives are running and where it came from, you know that you can reparent yourself. You absolutely can reparent yourself. You can create a new relationship with yourself. And what it really looks like is you being your best friend. You actually whispering in your own ear in a positive way and saying, you know what? I know life has been hard. We've had a lot of knocks. And at this point, it's okay. It's okay to get back up and actually be human and try again and keep trying again. And I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to have my own back and not trade that for anything. Literally trade that for nothing. Because if you can do that, then all of the things that you're looking for when you seek for other people to love you from the outside will be yours right now. And if you don't do that, then you can have everybody on the planet going, you're so wonderful. And we'll still be withholding those good experiences from the inside because you'll go, that if they only knew, then they wouldn't love me.
We've all seen those movie stars that commit suicide. Everybody thought they were on top of the world, but they weren't.
Exactly.
All right. Great show, Debbie. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you again next time on Good Vibes.